I'm Richard Jennings, and I'm a concrete repair specialist and also electronic visual artist. The idea basically starts with a theme. The theme is a monster laboratory that is from the 1930s to about the 1950s approximately. And I look for items that basically kind of match that. I research older films and serials of that period of time, and especially their laboratories, and look to see what they got. And then I say, well, I can build that, or that looks interesting, and I'll see what I can find. And then you start shopping for it. Of course, you can never find everything exactly like whatever's on the movies or anything, but sometimes you can come reasonably close. A lot of these items were inspired by stuff that was in various movies. Another thing would be is how difficult it is to build the piece and how big it's going to be, because a lot of these things have got to be assembled by me, so essentially some of them may have to be disassembled or made up in sections, and so they can be moved or taken apart. So that idea has to be added to the thing when you're building the item. And so I'd say the average length of time to build each one is at least 2 weeks on the average. Most of the items are a work in progress anyway. They've been revised every year. So every year almost every item has been almost stripped down to bare bones, and just its outline might be used, or it might even just completely disappear and be absorbed into another machine. So in that case, none of the stuff is actually totally done. All items are found in Omaha. So this is kind of a shop Omaha type deal. None of them are found on the computer. They're all basically hand researched out and drive up to the stores and to find them. They're found in curio shops, Goodwill supplies a lot of stuff, antique malls, thrift shops and outlets of various types. Well, all of them have been challenging, but essentially the one that really took the most amount of thought and had to be put together in the shortest period of time was probably the robot maid. She had to be broken down in 3 different pieces and had to be made the right height to get underneath the garage door when she was staged, and then all her pieces had to be working and putting her head together with all of its intricate wiring and light emitting diodes and jazz. Was like building a model inside of a bottle. So it was pretty bad to do. Most pieces weigh quite a little bit because they're made out of real things. About 80% of the stuff out there is something real, and it's from the 50s or 40s or 30s or something like that. So essentially it's made out of the real heavy stuff, real iron, real steel. This stuff all weighs, so you have to balance it all out with counterweights and stuff, and it all has to be rolled out on little casters because it all weighs hundreds of pounds for each individual item. All the stuff from the 30s and the 40s and so on and so forth had very little regard for safety of the consumer on the average, so there was a lot of sharp projections in areas where if they were actually running, you could actually get shocked by them. But since none of this stuff actually usually uses real power only in their display lights, then they really are not shock hazards. The only ones that might be shock hazards are double switched anyway, which would be the Jacob's ladders, and they're only on for a couple of seconds and they're fenced so nobody can get to them. If you're trying to figure out how you're going to attract somebody with your piece, whether it's going to be lights or motion or whatever, then essentially speaking, the further you are away from the piece, the more light really basically plays with it to catch your attention. The closer you get, the motion kicks in. But once you've got somebody there, basically then you've got to appeal to their fantasy or their whim, essentially what tickles them to hold them into place to actually look at the device any further. You can get them there with a couple of flashing lights, but after they see that, oh, so what, and they'll walk away. But if you can hold on to them and say, ooh, look at that, ooh, look at this, that's what you want. Lots of people visit the house, and those people tend to think that a lot of this stuff actually really works. And they ask questions like, how do I make the robot's hands move, and how do I do this and that robot's hands don't really move, and as such it's a static display in some cases, but it appears that it moves. So a lot of stuff appears that it moves, but they're static displays. But people take it for granted that all this stuff actually is is realistic enough that it's actually working. And so that's what kind of holds the people into place, because it's about as realistic a looking laboratory that most people have ever seen outside of a movie.